African Americans in this country are the only groups. They have no culture. It depends on who you meet, where you meet them.
But currently there's not an African American culture?
No.
Yes, there is.
What is it? Name 2 value systems in the African American culture.
Value system?
Yes. Name 2 taboos in the African American culture system. Name 2 traditions, by the way, in the African American culture system. There is no value for freedom if you don't understand what it is. The concept of free. You have to have a foundation on which it would balance when you ask for it. Civil right, they give it to you. You have no culture. Nancy, you've been here, born here. Why would you be surprised if I say African Americans don't have a culture? What, twerking? So anything
but I feel like African American culture has definitely
you say
mainstream.
No, you say the word, the African American culture. What is it? Okay, fine.
Like hip hop.
Oh,
not
Jesus
hip hop. I mean, I don't want to.
Look,
yes, I feel like
you haven't thought about it. It's fine. Don't make things up.
I'm not making it up.
Okay,
I feel like
then educate me. You feel. You should know. You were born and raised here.
Yes, but I have a Haitian.
Are you African American?
I'm Haitian American.
That's correct. Do you see why you were being specific with that? Because anybody who encounters you already knows you before. If they know you are Haitian, at least 2 things comes to their mind.
What is that?
If they've been to Haiti, they can look at work ethics and they say, yes, Haitians, I know them. Service industry, they know where they do well. Food, they can say yes. And even language, Creole.
Right.
And they can say, oh, I love Haitians. Mm-hmm. Because they saw the culture in abstract before they encountered you. Mm-hmm. So people go over the bridge of your culture, your tradition, your customs, and that helps them to know how to
address it.
Exactly. I'm saying to you, any people who ask for these things, which are abstract, freedom, for example, independence, for example, and civil right, for example, voting right, for example, you must have a foundation on which these things are going to balance. Because the people there have to uniformly agree with consensus. This is our way of life. The do's and the don'ts involved in our culture. Even if you have to create an artificial culture.
Is that why the civil rights movement is considered dead?
It's dead and useless. They got it, but they could not balance it on any foundation.
Greetings everyone, welcome back to my channel once again, and if it's the first time that you're coming across my content, I will kindly request that you hit the like, subscribe and the share button, and I hope that you get to enjoy this video. And in today's episode, we are seeing again these constant arising issues about Africans claiming that foundational Black Americans have no culture. And it's not only Africa, it's also the people from the Caribbean and other Africans in other countries who are claiming this about the Black American. And well, the Black Americans are not just sitting back and watching this claim unfold without putting in their input. Well, watch this episode to the end as I come with my review at the end of it.
I watched the viral clip of that bald-headed African dude that was talking to that Haitian lady on his podcast about how Black Americans, we're the only people that don't have a culture, that don't have any value systems, any traditions, any taboos, blah, blah, blah. And I've watched some different takes on this, but I actually have a little bit of a different take. Okay, so my microphone just went out. But anyways, I have a little bit of a different take because listening to that clip made me realize something about the way that Africans view culture and traditions when it comes to Black people. So the reason why Africans say stuff like Black Americans don't have culture, we don't know who we are, we don't know where we come from, is because our culture in America doesn't center Africa. So what I mean by that is, if you look at like the Caribbean and South America, a lot of their culture and traditions mimic cultures or mimic the things that are done culturally in Africa, in different parts of Africa. So they've taken a lot of that African tradition and incorporated it into their cultures down in the Caribbean and in South America. So that's why they're not going to tell them that they don't know who they are, they don't know where they came from. They're lost. They're not going to say that to them because their culture, a lot of their culture resembles that different cultures in Africa. Whereas in America, as Black Americans, most of our culture, especially not mainstream culture, does not resemble anything African. Our culture does not center Africa. I don't think that Africans can really wrap their head around the idea of a group of Black people who just came up, who came up with their own culture that's based off of their own experience and that has absolutely nothing to do with anywhere on the continent of Africa. So in their eyes, it's like, you guys must be lost because you don't center Africa in your culture. You don't center Africa in the things that you do. Nothing that you do resembles African, anything in Africa. You don't resemble. We can't draw any parallels between what you guys are doing in America into Africa. I mean, even if we're just talking about lifestyles, like when you look at Haiti and Nigeria, you're not going to really see too much difference between a city in Haiti and a city in Nigeria. It's still full of scrap metal housing made out of shipping containers. There's extreme poverty in both of those areas, and they really kind of mirror each other in a lot of ways. And even in Jamaica, like certain parts of Jamaica could look similar to somewhere in Ghana or somewhere. So I feel like they have more of like that connection. Like, so I really feel like Africans look at Caribbeans and they see a lot of themselves in the lifestyles of the people there, but they don't see the reflection of themselves in us. And I think that they look at that as like somehow we are lost, or we don't have any pride, or because we don't feel connected to Africa. So if we're Black and we don't feel connected to Africa, that means that there's something wrong with us, and that means that we're lost. You know, they say that Black Americans have main character syndrome and we're self-centered, but yet the way that they view culture, and the reason why they tell us that we don't know who we are, we don't have a culture, or we don't have traditions, or we don't, we're just lost, is because our culture doesn't resemble theirs. Our culture doesn't center Africa, but somehow we're the main character. But aside from all of that, I don't feel like anybody has the right to tell somebody else that they don't have a culture. You don't have a right to speak on another group of people's lifestyle. Like, you just, and the lady that he was sitting across from, honestly, I just don't think that her elevator goes to the top floor. I don't think that she has the mental bandwidth to engage in a conversation like that. But I feel like a lot of times they pick people like that specifically that they know won't really have no pushback, that don't have the mental capacity to go back and forth with them and actually educate them. Because apparently she did not. She just sat there looking like boo-boo the fool and had no rebuttals at all. So, but anyways, that's my take.
There's a difference between Black America and white America, and y'all fucking know that. And to say we don't have any culture when everything around the fucking world is influenced by Black culture is fucking ignorant to say.
Who lied to you? What you mean culture? Who lied to you? Influence is not culture. Ma'am, influence is not culture. What you mean culture? Gang banging, Crips and Bloods? Sexy red? Is that the culture? No, ma'am. Let's talk about how your so-called culture is the reason why they call women Black queens whore. Your culture is the reason why they call Black men criminals. You say culture? What culture, man? Who lied to you? Let's talk about how what you call culture is the one thing promoting the pew-pewing of Black men around the world, the degradation of Black queens around the world, and the exploitation of our communities. What culture? You don't even like yourselves. You want to talk about influence? Let's talk about how your so-called influence culture is influencing mass murder around the planet, gang violence. Let's talk about how your so-called influence, your so-called culture is influencing prostitution around the globe, influencing the degradation of Black women, influencing the incarceration, mass incarceration of Black men, the loss of values, loss of morals. Is that the influence and culture you want to be proud of? Is that it? Ma'am, if this is your culture, how come everyone else benefits from it except you? Oh, and by the way, right, there's no difference between Black America and white America. You've never had America. Remember, you helped the white man fight against the British to gain his independence, and you came back, could not even find the balls to fight for your independence. You had to settle for civil rights, which was given and taken away. What Black America? What Black America? We have Black people in America. We don't have black America, just like we don't have yellow America or red America. Just white America. That's it.
Where is your culture? We wait. You can barely even string together a proper fucking sentence. And these are the people that y'all want us to unite with. These are the people that y'all are trying to force all of us to be Pan-Africans with. These are the people that y'all are trying to force us to get out in the fucking street to march for them to be able to stay comfortably in the country that our ancestors built, in a country that systemically, you know, we have a lot of shit going on that we're continuously fighting, but they're able to comfortably migrate here because of the work that people that look just like me from my lineage has put in. These are the type of people that y'all want us to fucking fight for. That's constantly saying we have no culture. We all supposed to fall under the black umbrella, though. Oh, just because the police see you, they gonna all see us as the same. These people do not fuck with us. Look at them. They keep saying, what's your culture? While simultaneously biting off of us. They bite off of everything we do. Y'all are in my comments literally saying, clock it. Where the fuck y'all got clock it from? Y'all didn't come up with that in South Africa. The periods, y'all didn't come up with that. Y'all dressing like how we dress. Using our art form, which is the genres of music, the type of music that Tyler does, piano, I think I'm saying it right, it derives from jazz music, which is Black American grown, hip hop, which is Black American grown, and house music, which is Black American grown. We've literally contributed to the entire world, and not just music. The phone that you're using. I'm not about to get into what our culture is. It's every fucking thing you live, eat, and breathe, bitch. Ooh, excuse me. I just had like a juice. It was so delicious. It had pineapple, blueberry. I made myself a cold pressed juice. Pineapples, blueberries. I put 2 whole lemons in it, some ginger, and some oranges. It was delicious. Anyways, I'm tired of them asking or trying to say we have no culture. We are the culture. We are. That's why y'all keep coming up in our comment sections trying to pop it, trying to get some interaction. That's why y'all keep using us for clout, making videos talking about Black Americans day in and day out. Bars. It's because we lit like a fucking Christmas tree. Everybody wants to talk like us, be like us. Everybody's in our pop culture. Everybody's using fucking things that we've invented in their houses today. If you open the door today, a Black American person invents the doorknob. Culture is inventions, ideologies, art form, language. Y'all love to say, oh, y'all just speak English. Y'all just speak English. You speak English too. We speak the most universal language. We don't need to know all of that clickety clackety shit y'all got going on. We have a different vernacular, different accents. If you got on jeans and a fucking cotton t-shirt, where you think that came from? Anyways, I'm leaving. I'm tired of y'all with this same old bullshit. But these are the type of people y'all want us to, we all black with. When they say we don't have no culture and they talk shit about us and talk down on us. No, thank you. For the ones of y'all that's cool, we fucking cool. We cousins all day. But for the funky scat cats like y'all that's talking about y'all ain't got no culture, suck a big one. Go eat the dog. The dog festival is coming up. Spread love is the Brooklyn way. The culture. What's the culture? Bitch, you're looking at it.
Bunch of people got mad at me when I made a video a couple weeks ago saying how as an African American I can acknowledge how we really don't have a culture out here in America. I still have to agree, and yes, this is a double down. What you have to understand is that the Africans can literally point to the Yoruba, it can point to the Zulu, the Igbo, tie language, tradition, and practices to a land and lineage, and we were cut from that through slavery. What we as African Americans have built here in America has solely been off of pain, suffering, oppression, racism, and trauma. It was all rooted in survival, not rooted in culture. And most of what we call our culture today, music, fashion, slang, and sports, is more so of trend than it is an actual foundation for a culture. Must I remind African Americans that culture is supposed to be a collective identity, and African Americans lack that collective identity. In order to argue against that and to bring evidence that argues against that will be literally only proving my point, in which I am about to do right here, right now. What we do have here in America as Black African Americans are trends that are based off of what's popular in social media and in entertainment. Just look how fast the eras switch. First it was big tees, big jeans, and fitted hats. Then it was skinny jeans, sweater vests, V-necks, and Vans. Oh, my fault, the jerkin. Then it was being nerdy with the anime aesthetic, popping the lens out of your 3D glasses so you can look more nerdy, colored wig, Glocks with switches, designer clothes, shiesty masks, Ethica draws. Now it's cowboy hats, boots, fans, trail rides, rodeos, and perpetually trying to live this country lifestyle. It's all based off of popular trends. But yet, if you ask any African American, any uneducated one, they will say that all of those things and eras are culture, but yet only practice that culture and only please that aesthetic when it's popular to do so. Again, that's not culture, that's a popular trend. Real culture isn't something that you just put on and take off. Culture isn't something that ends when you leave from around that environment or that land. Culture doesn't end when you elevate and get to a certain point in society. A Zulu in Africa doesn't stop being a Zulu because of some outside influence or outside circumstance. But here in America, when it comes to African Americans, our culture is in fact something that you can take on and take off. In America, culture is definitely something you can outgrow based off your financial status. In America, as an African American, our culture is definitely something that you can leave behind based off of you moving from around that area. That means that I can be born in the hood of America, come from a single parent household, and yet make a conscious decision to not dress like the people around me, not talk like the people around me, not behave like the people around me, make different choices from the people around me, while still experiencing the exact same oppression, racism, trauma, and pain. But because I don't dress, I don't behave, I don't talk like the people around me in that same environment, those people are going to tell me that I don't fit the black culture. Is literally contradicting to a lot of you guys' definition of what black culture really is, in which I'm still going to get to that. And on the flip side, I come from a two-parent household, still be black American, not even being exposed to any of those environments. I can still come from those environments, still experience racism and oppression, still have the same pain and trauma that they have in the hood, but they are going to say that I'm not a part of the black culture. Again, that's not culture. And because the definition of what black culture is that comes out of these urban inner city areas, that does not include all African Americans under that umbrella definition, means that the absence of such definition means the absence of such culture. Because again, according to African Americans, any black person that is born in America that does not talk like them, dress like them, walk like them, behave like them, or those who come from their environment, but yet choose consciously to not assimilate to that type of culture, is not really a part of any culture to them, right? Because what you guys are trying to label culture as is really survival patterns. Look at the phrase "not like us." That phrase embodies the gatekeeping and degenerative behaviors that causes African Americans to mistake pain and entertainment for culture. Because outside of the manufactured aesthetic that you guys all label as a culture, if it is truly linked to the experiences, oppression, systematic oppression, trauma, and pain that we have gone through, that our ancestors have gone through, if that's what gives us our culture, let me ask y'all this then. What would this culture look like without that? Would we still have a culture in your eyes if we would never systematically oppress? If racism was never a thing? If trauma and pain did not exist in the way that we know it as African Americans, would we still have a collective culture and identity? The answer is no. We don't have one now, and we wouldn't have one then. And in 2025, with all the resources and things out there available to us, African Americans specifically, that our ancestors did not have access to, which caused them to be in a perpetual state of survival, thus shaping what you have perceived to be African American culture this whole entire time, don't you think that it's a bit pointless to keep upholding those degenerate ass behaviors and trying to call it a culture when we don't have to survive anymore? That's why, whether you're arguing that African American culture is entertainment and an aesthetic is false, and that's why arguing that African American culture is that of oppression, racism, pain, and trauma is also false. It's not built and founded on anything that collectively brings all African people and African Americans together that live in America. That's why we don't have a culture. But when Africans question us, they're not wrong. Because if our so-called culture can be simply stripped away by simply being successful, elevating in society, or making a conscious decision to not assimilate to dysfunction, maybe what we have been identifying as is not a culture, but of simply popular trends, shared trauma and survival, and not a collective identity. And that's why Africans look at us the way that they do.
I've seen several videos from this interview this morning with Frank Zanu, and while seemingly educated and has some interesting points of view, it's spewing lots of white supremacist ideas of blackness and colonialism. He particularly hones in on Black Americans and Haitians, and as you can imagine, I was all ears on both sides of this combo. What's worse is the women having the conversation with him didn't have the bandwidth or capacity to speak on these topics. And if there's one thing that really grinds my gears, is people who paint broad strokes and completely leave out the historical nuance and geopolitics that are crucial, especially when discussing anyone in the diaspora's history, culture, language, and current socioeconomic positioning in the modern world post-colonialism. To say that Black Americans have no culture boldly is to admit publicly that you're unqualified to continue your conversation. He is correct that there is no one singular unified Black American culture. That would be similar to you saying all of West Africa has a singular culture, because America is comparable to a continent size-wise. Black American culture is American culture, which is consumed globally and emulated globally, but it's become the dominant standardized culture for so long, you're not able to ascertain which aspects of that culture are Black. Furthermore, the bastardization of that culture that America exports. Prime example. We have to discuss the socialization of anti-Black sentiment throughout the diaspora when it comes to America, and that's seen from educators down to laymen, and this man appears to be no different. Because according to you, twerking is not a valid part of African American culture, even though it comes from your culture and our ancestors. So why is this dance considered traditional and cultural for you, but twerking for us couldn't be a part of African American culture? Black American culture is unique and has developed in America over the last 400 years. Black spirituality and worship in the Black church has been a central and vital institution in Black American life, acting as a hub for community, social justice, and spiritual support. Religion has provided a source of strength and hope in face of a systemic oppression, which is where a lot of our traditions stem from. Black American spirituality, Louisiana voodoo, and hoodoo, which developed from the Middle Passage and thrived during our time here on the plantation, is a direct result of our African origins coupled with our new existence here in America, which is no different than Santeria in Cuba, DR, voodoo in Haiti, Obia in Jamaica, or Candomblé in Brazil. If you're in America, there's a difference between a Black funeral, Black wedding, Black church, Black christening, Black palm, versus white versions of these. These are our tradition, and this is what we've developed here. Same things that you attribute to any other African or Latin American culture, these parts of our culture are just not exported to the world, so you don't think they exist. Soul food, which can be traced back to the culinary practices of enslaved Africans in the American South, blending African traditions with European techniques, inspiration from the natives, and ingredients and cooking methods available during slavery. It's unique to Black Americans, and it varies by region, same as food varies by any region anywhere in the world. Our value systems are family and community. We have collectivistic values placing a strong emphasis on family closeness, community bonding, and solidarity is a core value in most, if not all, Black American communities. Children are often raised to show great respect for their elders, seeking guidance and reverence as they age and as we mature. Art, which is the most exported and consumed and marketed part of our culture. From the Harlem Renaissance to today, Black Americans have made immense contributions to the arts. For example, literature, writers like Langston Hughes define the Harlem Renaissance. Visual art, our dances, our music, which have been consumed globally for the last century. Every popular genre of music we've created: blues, jazz, hip-hop, praise and worship, gospel, rock and roll, and country are all Black American culture. Clothing and style are Black American culture, street style, hip-hop style. And you say about our language, we have AAVE, we have Gullah Geechee, we have Creole. People speak differently in Texarkana, people speak differently in South Carolina versus the North versus the Midwest. America is this roughly the size of Europe. Again, to say America and Black Americans have no culture is not only lazy, it's playing into the trope that we are the lost Africans, and also lends itself to they don't know where they come from. So many dangerous and misinformed tropes this man puts forward about both groups. And if there's one thing I hate, like I said, is people who make claims and leave out the history and geopolitics that are required to understand the talking points that we are currently discussing. Some aspects of Black Americans feeling like they're oppressed, so they stay oppressed. Maybe we can dive into those concepts and you can provide a well thought out thesis or provide to me your point of view. But if you're doing so from a flawed place to begin with, I can't respect anything you say. Black Americans have no culture. Haitians don't speak a language, and Haitians are failing because Africans never knew or saw governance. Those 3 points are completely wrong.
Somebody has said that African Americans don't have a culture. Okay, well, I'm going to take on that challenge because Mr. Mann's asked for systems, traditions, taboos, the foundation. All right, come on. Start with systems. All right, well, we have the village system, right? Where aunties, play cousins are all raised at Big Mama's house, right? At Gigi's house, right? At Granny's house. We all raised right alongside the parents, right? Their children. It's one big family village. It's one big village. That is a system of survival when America tried to break our families apart. Second system, call and response, right? In church, in music, in conversation, call and response. When one voice calls, the community answers. This is how we affirm each other, how we build rhythm within our community. Now you want taboos. All right, disrespecting your elders. The last thing you're about to do is walk up in Granny's house and not take them shoes off and not announce yourself and greet everybody. And you sure as hell ain't about to talk crazy to no elder. You don't cross no elder. That's cultural law. Another taboo, getting too cozy and friendly with authority. See, we have always known that police and state do not protect us. So being a snitch or trusting white authority a little too much, that's taboo. And this is ancestral knowledge that's been passed down out of survival. And you want traditions, baby, the black church, hello. It ain't just about the religion, it's music, it's community, it's fashion, it's politics. It's where a lot of our ancestors went to get healing. And I'm talking about emotional and mental healing from a world they had to walk around in telling them that they're not good enough. Doing everything in its power to make sure they don't survive where they could come to church and get their spirits built back up. Baby, that's tradition. Even though I am no longer a Christian and I have deconstructed my Christianity, you best believe I feel right at home at a black church. Best believe it. And I go every now and again just so I can keep that community because, baby, that's tradition. That's what we do. And then, of course, soul food and Sunday dinner. Don't nobody leave a black church or a black home hungry. Absolutely not. Recipes passed down since slavery, baby. Collard greens, black-eyed peas, ham hocks, pig's feet, cornbread. And yes, baby, fried chicken. All tradition. All part of our culture. Straight from our tables. Let's talk about language. African American Vernacular English, Bookie. A full language system with rules and grammar. Same way Haitian Creole is for Haiti, right? Yeah, we got AAVE. Words like lit, salty, woke, bae. That's us. And what's crazy is the whole world speaks our tongue and don't give us credit for it. Let's talk about music. Blues, gospel, jazz, hip-hop, R&B, soul, rock and roll. Country, hell, it's all ours. Entire industries, whole industries, entire global genres birthed out of black America. Baby, that's culture. I want to talk about some style, baby, from braids to fades, from sneaker culture to streetwear. Baby, that's us. Our aesthetics have influenced the planet. Yeah, and let's talk about that little slick comment about the civil rights movement being dead. Let's be clear, the civil rights movement did not die. It evolved. The 50s and 60s had marches and sit-ins. The 70s had black power. The 80s and 90s fought mass incarceration. And today we got Black Lives Matter, bail funds, and grassroots organizations. Same struggle, just different strategies. Because rights on paper don't equal rights in practice. Ain't shit was handed to us. We fought for that. And we're still fighting. We fight every generation to enforce our rights. Here he's talking about some black Americans ain't got no foundation. Baby, survival is our foundation. Building a culture that influences the globe out of scraps, that's our foundation. Resilience, collective care, joy as resistance, and creating whole worlds out of nothing. That is our foundation. So the next time somebody want to say African Americans ain't got no culture, y'all remember to remind them. Our systems are alive, our taboos are enforced, our traditions feed us, and our foundation is unshakable. And the only reason y'all think we don't have a culture and don't see it is because it's so normalized. Every one of y'all is partaking in it every damn day. Y'all done forgot where it came from. The whole world's living in our culture, baby.
Every time I hear somebody say that Black Americans have no culture, I think,
you're the reason why people keep on asking this question, because you don't even know how to answer this question. When asked what is Black American culture, you need to actually show Black American culture, like they do in Louisiana, for example. They have actual Black American culture, but you coming out here showing a plate of food and some dude with a radio. What does that have to do with anything? Let's go with the plate. On your plate you have collard greens. Africans also have collard greens. It is cooked the exact same way. In Congo, for example, we call it ndunda. Same thing. And on top of that, you have the audacity to show mac and cheese. Mac and cheese. Two of the most European creations ever. I remember one time I saw a guy who said, oh, mac and cheese is in Black American creation. Listen. Y'all need to be serious. Okay, when you start talking about things like this, you need to be serious. This is why people look at you funny, because you're saying things that don't make sense. A guy said mac and cheese is a Black American creation. He said some dude named Hemming, I think Hemming, created it. No, he did not create it. Maybe he helped popularize it. I don't know, but he did not create it. Mac and cheese. Listen. Cheese is probably one of the most French things that you will find out here. Cheese. And don't even get me started on mac. That's literally short for macaroni. That's an Italian word, okay? So how come a French thing and an Italian thing is part of your culture? This is the reason why people keep on asking y'all these stupid questions, because you don't even know how to answer it. Answer the question properly and people will leave it alone. I don't even see the reason to talk about the other thing, because that's just a black man with a radio. I understand what it symbolizes. It's hip-hop, I get it, but that man is wearing a Kango, okay? That's literally a company owned by a white man.
So I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday, and we were talking about Caribbean cultures, and Black American culture came up, and he was talking about how, Black Americans don't have a culture. And I said, no, Black Americans definitely have a culture, especially me dating and being in love with a Black American, and, being able to go back home to North Carolina with him and getting to meet his family and getting to see like all the things that they do have as far as like traditions, foods that they like to eat, what time of year they do different things. They do have a culture. And I had an epiphany when he was saying that, but I didn't get to say it in the moment because the conversation was going so fast. But I had this epiphany that as a Canadian-born Haitian woman living in America, everything I'm able to do is because I'm living within Black American culture. When I think about my career and all the big things that I've done, Black Americans have been tied to that. My first big network job was at BET, and that was because of a Black American woman by the name of Tanya Hoffler, who's been in the business for years. She saw something in me and she gave me that opportunity. And mind you, she gave it to me at a time where people in my community were telling me how I wasn't gonna be anything and I ain't shit and I'm a nobody. And they were doing all this because I had asked the DJ to stop tagging me in promotional flyers for parties that he did not want to pay me to attend. And their response to me was, "You're nobody." Meanwhile, a Black American gave me a job at a major network. I have a job with Hulu right now, and that came from Black Americans. I had a podcast for rap shit called Chat Shit, and that was on HBO. And you know why I was able to do the Chat Shit podcast on HBO? It was because of Issa Rae. That was her show, Issa Rae, Black American. I have been able to thrive because Black American culture exists. And I think that a lot of us that are, Haitian or Jamaican or Nigerian or whatever, African, or even those of us who are Afro-Latino, or even those of us who are not Black, who get to profit off of Black culture more than actual Blacks get to profit, you really have to give Black Americans their flowers, because a lot of us would not be able to thrive the way we do in America if it wasn't for Black American culture. We literally live off of Black American culture while we live within it. I'm literally a Canadian-born Haitian woman living in America, and I get to pay my bills off of my personality, off of the things that I say, and that is because of Black American culture. Within the Haitian culture, the things that I say is very not accepted. You know what I mean? And me being able to be bold and confident and say the things I want to say and say what I really want to say, when I want to say it, how I want to say it, that is because of the Black American culture. And I will always be thankful for that. And I think that those of us who are not Black American, but living here, especially those of us who are living here, we have to honor Black Americans. This is their fucking land. This land is their land, and we're on their land. We are on their shit. So give them their fucking flowers.
African Americans have no culture. Let's talk about this for a second. I've seen a lot of conversations on this app recently about how some African people, or some specifically Black British people, talk about how African Americans are so removed from their roots, and so they don't know their history or their culture, and effectively have no culture of their own. And in the time I've spent living in the UK, I will say that I have heard Black British people say something similar about African Americans a few times. And it's a very interesting, very strange thing to say for a few reasons. So let's talk about culture for a bit. As we talk about culture, I'd like you to keep two things in mind. One, jazz. And the other is an idea that is expressed by the philosopher Olufemi Taiwo. Taiwo occasionally says that he does not believe that any culture has a monopoly on their ideas. So when a culture, when a people group puts something out into the universe, it becomes basically available to all people to take and use however they want. So a culture does not own its ideas. Once something gets put out into the universe, it becomes free for anyone to engage with. This is part of what it means to be human. And this is why sometimes it's difficult to have proper conversations about culture. So back to jazz. In very simple terms, jazz is Black American music. Jazz, as a genre of music, was born out of the United States, out of the minds and talents and practices of African American musicians. Now, of course, there are elements of jazz, rhythmic ideas and improvisational ideas that we can trace back to Africa more directly, but the fact remains that as a genre, jazz would never have happened if not for African Americans. And this makes it a part of American culture. It's important to remember that African Americans were not immigrants to the United States, and they have roots that go deeper than a lot of the other people groups that currently inhabit the country. So jazz is American music, gifted to the American story, and really gifted to the rest of the world from African Americans. So much so that the US Department of State conducts what it calls cultural diplomacy, which basically involves the American government sending jazz musicians to different parts of the world to just vibe with musicians, because it sees that as promoting American values and cultures around the world. And it sees that as a good thing. But again, cultures are complicated. There would be no jazz without traditional African music, but there would also be no jazz without the African Americans who lived in a specific place and time to make jazz happen. But because of the complexity of all of these things, we can even go as far as saying that contemporary African pop music, Afro beats, would not exist without African Americans. This is Fela. He is the father of Afrobeat. And Afrobeat is like the dad of Afrobeats with an S. Fela was a Nigerian musician who created Afrobeat by bringing together different genres of music, most notably jazz, funk, high life music, which is traditional West African music. Jazz and funk are important, are integral to Afrobeat, and jazz and punk are both styles of music that came out of the African American experience. In other words, there would be no Afrobeat without African American music, and there would be no Afrobeats today without Afrobeat. So when we as continental Africans vibe with our Afrobeats, well, we thank Fela for coming up with Afrobeat, and we thank all of the African American musicians for coming up with jazz and funk. And in this we see the complexity of cultures, how they are very intertwined with each other. I'm standing up now. So to deny the culture of African Americans, to deny the contribution of African Americans to American culture, you are denying very integral parts of American culture itself. And so, keeping all this in mind, we are confronted with the fact that it is incorrect to think that.
Well, if you watch the rest of this video, you're seeing that most foundational black Americans are claiming that they do have culture, and this is despite of the constant arising claims that the black Americans have no culture. And if you go back to history, you'll get to notice that black Americans have this dark history of slavery that always hangs above them. And this goes back to the transatlantic slave trade period, whereby we get to see that these black Americans were taken away from Africa as slaves and brought into the United States to work in the cotton fields. And after this happened, you get to see that most of these individuals, that is the ancestors, were cut from their ancestral roots and motherland, and you get to see that their future generations got to adapt newer names, new identity, and a total overhaul of the previous knowledge and cultures that they had. And you get to see that coming to the current world again, you're getting to see most people are claiming that the black Americans don't have a culture. And this is based on the fact that when you compare with the other Africans, black Americans are the only ones who have a culture that is not similar or related to the other Africans in other countries. For example, Caribbeans like the Jamaicans totally acknowledge their origin that is from Africa. We see like there's some Rastafarian movement in Jamaica bearing allegiance to Africa and also claiming that Africa is their motherland, and they usually look forward to coming back and resettle in the Holy Land that is in Ethiopia. That is thanks to their belief in Emperor Haile Selassie, who was a king in the Ethiopian kingdom that most Rastafarian believers look at as a deity. And for most Jamaicans, again, you'll get to see that they still have that some culture in them that they carried from their motherland, Africa. And you notice that most of the Jamaicans who, who settled there were brought again through the transatlantic slave trade to work as slave in the sugarcane farms. And these Jamaicans actually managed to keep some of the African traditions and culture, unlike the individuals who settled in the United States. You get to see that these individuals share a similar past, but the way that they have turned out, that is post-slavery era period, is totally different when you try to compare these individuals. And at the front line of this, you're getting to see that we Africans are coming up with this online war claiming that the black Americans are not cultured and they don't have any culture of their own. Yeah, well, is this true or is this false? Let's look at some of the facts here. A culture is a way of life of people. You get to see that culture entails language, music, art, humor, spirituality, traditional norms, rules, abomination, among other things that define a certain tribe or ethnic community. And having this definition at the back of your mind, you get to notice that different communities around the world have different ways of expressing their culture. And most of these cultures are deeply tied to the history of a certain community, and you get to see that even despite of the fact that these communities tend to move away from their original places of birth or origin, they still get to maintain some of these cultures. And a good example of this is the Caribbean people, who still got to maintain or generate languages, that is Creole, that still pertained some of their original language. And in Creole, you get to see that there are this similarity in words and speeches. For example, the Patois language is mainly influenced by the West African language Pidgin, and you get to see that these people also have similar words when they communicate with each other. And this again acknowledges the fact that this linguistic development still has that root tied to their motherland. However, for the black Americans, we get to see that they speak something that is totally different or totally unrelated to their places of origin. And as part of their culture, as I had mentioned before, their most widely imported culture that has created impact across the world is their lifestyle. We get to see that one of the most important imported products from America is music. And thanks to hip hop, you're getting to see that more and more individuals around the world, especially the younger youth, the younger people try to emulate the American people. So this hip hop music and other types of music like jazz, soul music, all these can correctly be identified as part of the Black American culture. However, many people still discredit this as they claim that culture has to do something with traditions, norms, abomination, rules. All of these things are not necessarily the expression that they have in music and the general lifestyle impact that these individuals have are impacting across the world. And if you watch the rest of this episode, you'll see that also there have been several explanations given by Black Americans to try and educate the world about why they believe they still have a culture. And again, you've heard like from the individual speaking in the first speech, you've heard again his definition of culture and how he believes that the Black Americans don't have culture. Well, this is still a matter up for debate, as each individual gave out their sensible or rather befitting description of culture. And this back and forth exchange has been captured in this episode, and I really hope that you've watched it to the end so as you've managed to at least get an idea of what is happening out here. And I'll also love to have a chance to hear from you in the comment section as we get to interact with each other. Well, this marks the end of this episode. Thank you once again, and see you in the next one.